Alright, guys. We have some Saw to fucking do. So, let's start right off the bat with 2005, Saw 2. Alright, so Saw 2, we have Leigh Whannell here, and yeah, I'm gonna keep saying Leigh. That's how I pronounce his name. As I said, you take a W, you get that L out of the way, put a W in there. You say way or we. Yeah, you say way if you're good at English. So, Leigh Whannell is gonna be his name for me forever. So, I know that he came in and did a lot of rewrites for this movie, that it was supposed to be some completely different film. And some guy who wrote the script for it, Leigh Whannell, ended up coming around and rewriting it and said, well, we can make this a Saw movie. We can make this a sequel. And, I mean, you can tell throughout this whole series that even though they came out once a year, just in time for Halloween, that they had no idea where they were going. Like, they had no plan for a sequel or for 8 movies plus a prequel plus another reboot. None of that was planned. So I've said this before, but the way that they were able to make it feel like this whole story was planned, like from the first movie to the eighth one, is fucking brilliant to me. And we'll talk about why as we go along. Alright, just with this opening, this little opening scene here, and I only have one like major point to bring up about it. We see this a lot in this franchise. How they get the TVs turning on by themselves? You know what I mean? Like, they have old ass television sets throughout this whole series, and you see it right here in the trap in the very beginning. Like real old TVs. How are they turning them on? Like when they need them to? That's a question I've always had. I'm sure there's ways. I'm sure there's a way. I'm sure there's a way to do it, like a switch or something that you can turn them on by themselves. But we'll just blanket it right now that that's bullshit, and that never would happen. Like back with these TVs. All right, so we have the opening trap here, which I'm gonna pretty much say this for a lot of these traps. This one's not that hard, like to get out or to do this. Like, yeah, you have to like cut your eyeball open. I understand that. That's nothing that any of us want. But either you watch that tape when it comes on, telling you what your game is, what you got to do. You either have friends that know how to take pranks way too far, or you know that this is some stranger and he's not fucking bluffing. So you better like get on it like hippity hop, and that's all you have to do. I mean, yeah, I know you have to cut your eyeball out, or at least go cutting around up there near your eyeballs. Anyone who's seen Fulci's movies would be able to tell you, excuse me, that's not a good thing. So I forget what this case even has to do with like the full story, like this guy at the beginning here. And if you expect me to remember little details like this as we go through, you're out of your mind with how crazy the story goes. But in the beginning, there was a man. He had a thing on his head. He had to cut into his eye. He didn't do it, and now he's dead. All right, so we got Donnie Wahlberg here as Eric Matthews, which is a pretty famous name for from characters in this series. And something with Donnie Wahlberg in the mid 2000s, like I know he was in Dead Silence too, with very underrated James Wan, Leigh Whannell. Hey, I said Leigh that time. No, I said Lee that time. Fuck you, it doesn't matter. Leigh Whannell. I'm just gonna alternate. I'm just gonna go between Lee and Leigh. Whichever one comes out, that's his name for the time being. But he was in Dead Silence, and feel like he probably would have had a better resurgence of his career if the if Wan and Whannell kept him around, like for more projects, because you don't see Donnie too much anymore today. But he's a cop and he smokes all the cigarettes in this movie. Like Donnie is smoking cigarettes in every scene that he's in this movie that I can remember. And we have his son Daniel, and he's kind of being a dick nowadays. He's getting older, and now he's stealing, kind of using his dad's, police. I don't even know the right word for it. like him being a detective and stuff, using that to his advantage to get himself out of trouble. And they have that little father son. I don't even want to say talk. It's not even a talk, but when he yells at him on like when they're walking to the car and he's saying, "I should go to mom's early," and then he just flips out on his son. And then he feels bad. He calls him like the day afterwards. But we know that he is in Jigsaw's clutches now. Also, both Wahlbergs are very good at playing the great cop who's going through some shit right now. And then by the end of the movie, he'll have a redemption arc so we can save like his character and who he is and be like, oh, I finally conquered all the shit I was going through. Both Wahlbergs are very good at that. I mean, it's like a movie trope that we have so much of now, like nowadays. So it doesn't take that much talent to do, but they play it well. So they go to the crime scene of the first guy from the very beginning, the idiot who can't carve his eye out and get the key. That guy. So Detective Matthews knows him from probably putting him in jail, which we know is what he did to all of the main characters that show up in a little bit in this movie. And then we have Agent Perez, who is trying to track down Jigsaw and brings Detective Matthews to the crime scene. He identifies that as Michael. That's the name of the guy, in case you really needed to know. Like, the guy who couldn't get this key out of his head. And found a jigsaw piece carved out of him. And Jigsaw took the time to bring Matthews into this by writing his name on the wall, saying, "Look closer, Detective Matthews." So, look closer, Detective Matthews. Okay, now it's going to be real fun breaking apart all the police procedure and shit in this movie, and the rest of them. But they come into this warehouse here where Jigsaw is, and he's not even trying to hide. We know this is all part of his plan. But he's sitting there at the desk, and the cops come in, and there's a booby trap when they first start coming into this warehouse. They just walk right into it. I mean, they really do. Like, these are the police, right? And they're supposed to be investigating this Jigsaw killer, who they know his whole thing is traps. They should be a lot more careful, like going through anything that has to do with Jigsaw, because there will be traps. Just like there will be blood, there will be traps when it comes to Jigsaw. And a big thing, which I'll bring it up again near the end, but they didn't know this was an elevator the whole time. The thing that John and Eric Matthews are talking for the entire movie on, they didn't realize this is an elevator. They didn't surround the whole building, like none of that. They didn't do any of this, really. There's so many things in this series that are ridiculous and are stupid. I kind of just fluff them away because I love the series so much. But that is so dumb. Like, it works for a good little mini twist near the end, I guess. But they didn't surround this building immediately and have people there the entire time. That is so hard to believe. It's suspension of disbelief killing impossible. Alright, so we find out from John Kramer, the Jigsaw here. He also says there will be blood. See, told you. There will be traps and there will be blood. He ends up talking to Matthews and telling him to go in the other room. And then they go in the other room and they look at the monitors and they see that Daniel, Matthews' son, is in this room with a bunch of other people. Now, the whole little, where is he? And him saying he's in a safe place. Again, cool, like for later. But I'm going to keep harping on this just to really hammer it home. Like, no one, like, searched this place. Like, no one saw this big-ass safe behind this guy. And it said, we need to get in there. Or, like, nothing. Like, I feel like they do, like, no police work here in this whole movie. Like, at all. I think them just waiting for, the tech crew. Or, like, bomb squad, something. I don't remember. But it takes, like, 40 minutes, the response time in this movie, for these people to get any sort of help at all. So, I don't know, it's funny. Jigsaw had the time. Come on, he had the time to change the voicemail on Daniel's phone to say, hey, this is Daniel's phone. Like, I'm not here right now. Really? Like, that. That's like him thinking big picture. Like, man, he's messing with them on like a little cellular level here. all right, I got to change their voicemail just to make it a little more dramatic for Detective Matthews as he's going through this case. Who does that is my point I'm trying to make here. Who changes the voicemail on one of their victims or potential victims? We know he doesn't mean to kill him because he's alive, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it's Bomb Squad. He asks it right now, which we have like 20 minutes into this movie. I'll let you know when Bomb Squad gets there because I'm telling you, it's like 40 minutes before these guys get here. And that's when we first hear that Eric Matthews, his son, Daniel, is with all these other people that we don't know at this time, but we do know at another time near the end that they were all criminals that he ended up putting away, that they didn't do anything wrong. So he's a dirty cop. And that there's nerve agent being poured throughout this house, and they got about 2 hours before they will bleed out every orifice that they have, to quote Jigsaw so kindly. Now, all of the characters, not all, but close to them, are some of the most despicable human beings in a movie. Like the main big dude, forgot his name. You think any of these people are getting names besides Daniel and Amanda? Speaking of Amanda, as soon as I think everyone saw the second movie and saw that Amanda's back and that she's in this trap, and she, especially when she says she's being tested again, or she was tested and now she's going through it again for some reason, immediately she has something to do with this. Like, come on, man, really? Like, she survived her little test in the first movie. Anyone who's been following that, like on the detective side or FBI side, they would know that, right? Like, we literally have the cops in the first movie show Dr. Gordon, let him watch her whole testimony. So nobody immediately thought it was weird that she was on the camera. Like, people aren't looking at the monitors trying to figure out who these people are. Like, none of this, like, come on. Like, nobody knew that this is the same girl who was put through a trap before and she survived. I don't know how any of that works. Yeah, so again with Amanda, she's the first person to find anything. As soon as she wakes up, she goes to the wall and starts trying to look for the loose brick and pull it out and finds the tape recorder. None of these people find this suspicious in any way. Like, none of them say that you have to know something more. Like, you were able to find that tape, like, real fucking simply, like, very easily. Like, no issues at all finding that tape. So obviously she knows something more, but they don't want to ask that. I think it's just hysterical too that after they play the tape from Jigsaw and it says about the nerve agent, and I forgot what he said, like the Tokyo train something, like apparently in this universe here, unless it's a real thing and I just don't know about it, there was something in the trains in Tokyo that this exact nerve agent was used, like in an attack on that place. And apparently some people are supposed to know that, is what he says on that tape. But he says a whole bunch of shit. And then the first thing that girl asks is, what do you mean by gas? Really? Like, that was the only thing you took away from that tape? Is that there's a nerve agent? I don't even think he said the word gas. He just says nerve agent. And that's the first and only question that she has. Like, he said a lot of stuff. Like, she's got to, like, get it going with how quick she picks up on things. Then we have the idiot who doesn't even deserve to live more than 5 minutes in this. Basically because of, I want to say Xavier. I want to say that for, like, the big douchebag here. But he goes and gets the key and says, don't use this key on that door. And it couldn't be any more, like, truthful with you. Like, don't open that key. Don't open that door with that key. That's all you got to do. And, of course, he goes and opens the key, uses the key, opens the door, and it shoots that guy in the head, like right through his eye. Looks really cool. All right, so the whole thing of the numbers are on the back of your mind, clue that he gives in the cassette tape, it seems a little on the nose, and this is probably just from knowing the whole franchise in and out. I won't say in and out because I forget a whole bunch of shit for every time I rewatch these. But I don't know. I feel like it's a little too on the nose for Jigsaw. And again, maybe that's just from like seeing as the movies go on, like how his, I don't want to say sense of humor because it's not that, but the way he thinks and the way that he throws these little clues in there and like what they end up meaning. So I mean, the back of your minds, it's kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say obvious either because it's not like if you're in that situation. But I feel like they wouldn't have taken as much time as it does here in the movie for them to figure that out, like at all. Like nobody, while they're walking through this house, notices that there's a big ass number on the back of their neck. Like that's something you think that you would notice right away. I guess not. I'm looking around. Like most of them have decently long hair that it would cover the back of their neck, but I know the black guy doesn't. I know Abby doesn't. The guy who gets burnt alive in the furnace that we're about to see, he doesn't. So nobody noticed that. I don't know. All right. So Eric Matthews' whole job here, what he has to do, is just sit down and talk with Jigsaw, and then he'll see his son again. Now we know that's not the case, but that's basically all he had to do, which is so hard. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, you got your kid missing in this house that they find out soon enough that he's in there with a whole bunch of criminals that aren't too happy with Detective Matthews. Almost forgot his name for a second. Not happy with him since he pretty much put them all in there with fake evidence and basically just fucked their lives up completely. So I get the emotional side of it. Like, Jesus, if somebody ever took my fucking daughter like this, ugh. But, so you can't get on him, for, like, Matthews for thinking, like, emotionally through this, because how could you not? But logically, just sit down and talk to this guy. Because it should be, I mean, it's only one movie, I guess, but, like, he's kind of already known for kind of keeping his word, if that makes any sense. Like for Jigsaw, that like any time that he has a game going on like this, there is a way to beat it, which I said in the first Saw. There's a few of them that I think it's bullshit on that already, but they kind of, that's the whole way they go down here, is that these things are beatable, and Amanda's proof of that. But now we find out Amanda's working with Jigsaw, so I don't know, but I feel like he should have, I don't know. I'm saving that thought. And then the big dickhead dude, he makes a decent point when he's walking through the house here and they're all trying to figure out a plan. And he says, like, yo, and he's knocking on the wall. He's like, it's wood, it's plaster. He's like, it's not a fortress, it's just a house. Good thinking, but like, why not just start tearing the walls down? Like, he says it and knocks on the wall and everything. It says it's not a fortress, we can get out. Then just proceeds to never again try breaking down any of the walls or anything in this house. So I don't know why he brought the idea up. It was a good one. Definitely worth exploring. Not for him, I guess. So Jigsaw is talking with Detective Matthews, and we get an explanation for why he takes the jigsaw piece out of his victims, or subjects, as John likes to call them. And it's supposed to represent a crucial piece of humanity that the subjects didn't have, like the survival instinct. So there's a whole little mythos behind Jigsaw's craziness, which we find out more as we go along. And yeah, that big douchebag who mentioned about not being a fortress and being able to, should be able to, like, break the walls down, he does a good job breaking that exit door down. But again, then he just gives up on that whole plan. So, like, I don't know why he's not trying to break the walls down all over the place. Now, they're in this room, right? After he breaks down the exit door. And they very deliberately show a quick shot of Amanda's hand flicking the light switch on, which I'm pretty sure that was intended to show people who are paying attention or for some reason didn't immediately suspect Amanda has to do with all of this. I guess the people who missed that boat, they get to see, oh wait, she knows where the light switch is, which is cool. It's a nice deliberate little shot they put there and kind of a little hint. But like I said, you really don't need any hints. Like, we all knew Amanda was involved when we saw her wake up in this room, in this house with all these people. So I don't know who that was for. Like the one or two people in the theater who didn't know. I don't know. You never know. So maybe it was and it worked for them. All right. So this is where I'm going to get confused like going forward. Because now I'm going to really be thinking about this. I don't remember when Hoffman was supposed to be working with Jigsaw. I'm pretty sure it was early on. Because they mention here on Abby's tape that there's two antidotes to the nerve agent in the house inside of this furnace. And he says that Abby can keep one of them for helping him kidnap the others. So if they had Hoffman working for Jigsaw already, why'd they need Abby? Like, I get it, like, more hands, like, why not? But, like, couldn't you have just used Hoffman to kidnap all of them? And Amanda? Like, I'm sure he could have. So I don't know if this is pre-Hoffman or right at the same time or just something that they never thought twice about. But I picked it up right here. That's like, all right, so he helped kidnap these people. Why didn't Hoffman if he was working with them? Or Dr. Gordon, but that's getting like 6 movies down the road. Let's just keep with Saw 2 for now. I don't know why I always like this line, but when Big Ass Dickhead goes to put the knife against Abby's throat, and then Abby just cuts himself, and he's like, if you're going to threaten me with a knife, yeah, at least you can cut me a little bit. I don't know what it is. I love that line. Then forces this guy headfirst into a furnace. I mean, yeah, they have this guy, Abby, to throw in there for them. But if this was anybody else, if they didn't have this trump card here of having Abby that they could just force into his death, which is exactly what happens here, I don't see anyone taking the risk of climbing into a furnace for anything. Like, let alone these 2 antidotes, which the black guy says pretty smartly, we don't know what's in these things. You're willing to take a chance and put it in your veins? Which then we see, like, the blood being coughed up by, like, one of the girls. So I'm guessing their answer would have been yes. Like, they're willing to take that risk. Which, how can you not? I mean, you're in that situation. You're going to have to go with whatever information you're given. Which is pretty much only what Jigsaw has told them on the tape. So Abby goes into this furnace like an idiot. And I keep saying that, but, like, obviously it's because of these movies. You wouldn't know how you're going to react or what you would do in a situation like this. But I'll tell you one thing I wouldn't do. I'm not getting in a furnace. Like, at all. Like, there's nothing that they can say or do that would get me into that furnace. Because you know what's going to happen? Yeah, that's right. You're going to burn the fuck alive, just like in the movie here. And they do a great job, actually, of really selling the whole burning to death. Seems like not a fun way to go, like, idea here. But all I can think of is, damn, man, it must take a lot of work to edit these movies. Like, to edit the Saw films together with all the quick shots and stuff like that. It's got to be a full-time job on top of a full-time job, like editing one of these movies. I'm just going with Xavier. I'm hoping that's his name. But him, like, you know he's taking one of those needles. If Abby was able to get out, you know he's taking one for himself. Like, he even tells Daniel, he's like, we'll figure it out later. Then as soon as Abby's, like, dead body's halfway sticking out the window of the furnace that they break open, the first thing that Javier does is go to him and be like, I want those needles. I need the fucking needle. Like, that's all he wanted. Like, he was going to take that needle and knock out whoever came close to him so he can get it first. We know that just from his character here, which he's a complete asshole. And see, this is exactly where the he had a choice thing comes into play. Now, we hear Amanda say those exact words after he's all charred up and dead. Of he had a choice. What was the choice? The choice was go in the furnace or don't go in the furnace? Because he didn't really have a choice. Like, he was being fucking threatened by Xavier. Again, hopefully that's his name. But he had no choice, really. And if he just went in there without any opposition, what's the choice then? He went into there. He went into the furnace. He's supposed to not be greedy. Like, take one, leave the other one. But what if he grabbed the one that was on the chain that yanked the door shut first? So I don't know. He was 100% dying here in this furnace. There was no choice or anything that he could have done, said, or anything that would have prevented him from dying right here. that I know of or that I can figure out. Let's see if you can let me know a reason, because I don't have one. He was always meant to die right there in the furnace. Now, we also find out here that John tried killing himself. With this whole dialogue between Matthews and him, with him saying that he has cancer, and so now he's testing the fabric of human, survival and everything like that. I could see where John's coming from, as weird as that is, but it's not an excuse. And even Matthew says that. So it's like using your cancer as an excuse for what you do. And then him saying it started when he tried killing himself and everything, and then it brought meaning to his life. Yeah, no one who has cancer should be doing what Jigsaw's doing. Like, at all. It's like, I don't know. It's such a weird backstory for him. Like, I get it. It makes sense. But he has cancer. Like, millions of motherfuckers get cancer all the time. Like, so what is the link there? Like, I don't know. I just feel like it's a very manufactured way to give meaning, sort of, to what Jigsaw's doing. Because at the same time, when you hear Eric Matthews sitting there and listening to all this, he says, you keep saying we're talking, you keep saying we're doing this, you keep going around, but nothing you're saying means anything. And just from him being a detective, he's probably been in that chair a million times, hearing the same thing from different crazy criminals and everything. Just talking, and none of it makes sense. But honestly, I feel like we need him, Matthews, here in this scene. Well, obviously, we need them talking to each other, but we need his line there of him saying that it all means nothing. Like, it's all just bullshit that Jigsaw keeps spewing over and over again, repeating, going back on things, and he's just talking in riddles. And Matthews knows that. And that's got to be so infuriating. Like, when your kid, especially when your kid is missing and you know this guy had something to do with it, and then he just starts talking in riddles over and over again. Oh, that's got to be so infuriating. It's not even funny. And police update, still no bomb squad, and still no tech team that's supposed to let them know where the video feed is coming from. They're on their way, though. I promise, they're coming. But when they get here is a goddamn mystery. Alright, so here's when we find out from Amanda that she used to be a junkie, which we knew that. And then why she's back in here a second time. Her response is she wasn't being too nice to herself. She was cutting herself. So I'm going to have to wait till 3, the next movie, to say this thought that I'm having that I can't even think of right now. But it has to do with the third movie. And pretty sure they elaborate more on that in the next film. So I'm just going to hold that for the next one. Put a pin in it. But she starts going on and saying that she started using drugs in prison. And when he asks what she got arrested for, possession. So none of that makes sense. So she says you have to talk to the cop who arrested me, which we all know near the end here is Detective Matthews. Pretty much screwed every single person in here. Like, were they criminals all beforehand? Pretty sure. But maybe like the blonde and Amanda, maybe they didn't really have anything like priors, but they're all screwed by Detective Matthews. And now they have his son here in the house with them under extreme duress and life or death situation. That is not a situation you want your son to be in at all. And I like the nice little subtle comment that Daniel makes when he's about to say that his father's a cop. And he goes like, my father's a... then Amanda looks right at him. And after you've seen this movie the first time, you know why. Because she's waiting for him to say that. In order for... I mean, she's basically here just to make sure Daniel doesn't die. Right? Like, she's not doing this for her health. Like, she put this all together with Jigsaw. So she's just taking this whole little stroll through this house just to protect Daniel. Just in case it comes out, when it finally does, who he is and who his father is. That these people won't just kill him on the spot. Like, that's the only reason Amanda's even involved with this whole game that they're playing here. Then the black dude just shows up and we get like a jump scare kind of. Like, we don't need jump scares in a Saw movie. I mean, come on. Alright, so we have probably the most famous scene from this movie here, Which again, did Amanda plan for this? I'm pretty sure no is the answer. And his name is Javier, so we got that right. If that's how you make people remember your characters' names in a movie, make them very compelling with great character development, or if you don't have time for that, just make them the biggest dickhead in the world. People will remember their name. But he ends up getting his tape, and he was a drug dealer and for pushing people, selling people false hope for a price, and now he has to do the same thing, and he has to go through all the needles. Now, no one thought for a second this guy was climbing into that pit, right? Like, for any reason, like, even that they're having an antidote on the other side of that door. This guy was never getting in there. So I don't know what Amanda's plan was with Jigsaw, like, for this trap here, because it just seems like another trap here that's not meant to be beaten. Like, who is finding a key in all of those needles? Amanda does, like, with a few seconds left. But I call bullshit just on that. Like, that's insane. And how many places did he have to go to get this many used needles? Like, think of all the hospitals and needle exchanges. And, like, it's possible, don't get me wrong. It's just not probable or likely. So I just have to call bullshit on that, too. But it's an awesome scene when she's like climbing through the needles, and she just starts getting pissed, and she just starts like throwing them around. I didn't even know what word was supposed to come out there. Throwing all the needles around, and then she finally finds the key. Just in time, Xavier. Just in time. That wasn't a good snap. Hey. Yeah, even with the few seconds he had, like once she gives the key to him, he would have made it if he didn't drop the key like an idiot. Like, he had enough time. They show it's like counting down like from 5 seconds or so. He goes to put the key in and then drops it. And then he goes to put it back in, and then it locks while he's trying to unlock it. And then he goes and he's about to beat the shit out of Amanda after she just went through the junkie pit of needles to try to get this key. She didn't want to do this, like, at all. Like, especially when we know the whole master plan here. Which, what is the whole master plan here with this movie? Like, I'm actually, like, really, like, remembering liking this movie a lot more than on this rewatch. Like, I feel like once it gets to, like, 3 and 4, because I don't really care for the traps in this whole franchise. Like, they're cool, but it's not why I watch the Saw franchise. I like the actual, like, soap opera story that we get going onwards. So I guess you can look at this as kind of like part 2 of like an opening chapter to a book. But I don't know, I remember a lot more going on in this movie, but there isn't. So who knows? I still like this movie a decent amount. But yeah, I don't know, I remember a lot more happening story-wise. Tech team still on its way. For some reason, this line really holds some weight to it. But when Perez and Riggs, which I didn't even mention Riggs because he's got a whole movie around him in the 4th one. So we'll talk more Riggs with that. But him, Perez, and Matthews, when they're trying to figure out, and they're like, where's the tech team? The tech team should be here in any second. Like, yeah, I'm counting the minutes. They should have been here long ago. But when he starts talking to Jigsaw, and Perez tells him to destroy his work, and that he's relishing in all of this, that this is his chance to be studied, and just threaten him to destroy all his work, which doesn't do really anything at all. Like, Jigsaw is completely content with that, and just saying that, you're going to lose your son. You're not playing by the rules, which is sit down and talk with him. But when he says to him, like, what type of person he is, what type of cop he is, saying that a cop who will plant evidence just to get a conviction, and whose ex-wife or wife, I forget if they're divorced or not yet. I think they're in the process of getting divorced, but we never see his wife, so it really doesn't matter. Saying that his wife can't stand him and a son who hates him, and then him just screaming, shut the fuck up, like to Jigsaw. I don't know why, but that shut the fuck up. Donnie Wahlberg delivers that perfectly, because I love how he delivers that line. Hey, the tech team arrived. Alright, so this is where we get the little bombshell, I guess you can use to describe it, of all the criminals that are in the house were all planted, evidenced on. Yeah, that made no sense. It's fucking early. that they all had evidence planted against them to get them sent to jail. And that if they find out that Matthews is the father of Daniel, that they're not going to be too happy with him, which absolutely makes sense. But he says to Matthews, Jigsaw's like, I want to show you something, but I can't move, whatever. Have the people in the other room listening on the walkie, which good for him for figuring out, to find it for him. And it's in like the second drawer in the room that they're in. They didn't tear apart this room. Like, they didn't look in the drawers. Like, come on, man, really? That seems so insanely stupid to me. Alright, so we're back to the numbers on the back of your mind hint. That Xavier just goes back into the room they started in, where the guy stupidly got shot through the eyeball when he tried opening the door that says, do not use this key on this door. And they did, and now the guy's dead. But he looks down and he notices the number on the back of his head. So like I said earlier, walking around this house, nobody noticed there's a big-ass number on the back of their neck. I mean, I get it, the situation they're in, but he notices right here on a dead person. And he had to like even lift like the back of his shirt down a little bit. He didn't notice this on any of the people walking around. I don't know, there's a lot of this in this movie, but it is what it is. But anyway, yeah, so Xavier figured out the whole numbers thing, and now he kills the black dude, which I don't even think this guy's a name, does he? Like, they never say anything about his name, or the blonde chick, or the other girl, like, never mention their names. But he takes the spiked nail bat and smashes it in the back of the black dude's head. So now he's got another number. He just needs the rest. And then, I don't even remember. Do we see the whole over the rainbow hint of the order that they have to put these numbers into the safe? I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure we see something to do with it. But there was no way this guy was figuring any of this out. Let's be honest. So they finally find the X marks the spot, which we've heard in the first movie. So he likes this whole little X marks the spot clues that he uses in all his games. But they find out that Daniel's the son of, Detective Matthews, who put them all in prison and set them up. Very convenient that they find out this information with just Amanda around and that other chick. Then the blonde one just seizures out on the floor and dies to the nerve agent. So a good thing Xavier wasn't around to hear this, because he would have absolutely destroyed this kid, Daniel. Alright, so again, no one looked on these monitors, none of these detectives, to find out who all the people in this house are. Like, they got the files thanks to John, because they would have never found them shits if they didn't just tear apart this whole place, which they did not. So they would have never found it if it wasn't for Jigsaw. But then now Xavier finds the paper, the picture on the ground saying father and son on the back, and the picture of Daniel and Eric. So now he's extra pissed. Now he's going around collecting all these numbers on the back of people's heads. You'd want to write it down, probably, right? Like, I mean, I get it in this situation. Like, this is the most integral information you're ever going to need. So, like, you would definitely remember all these numbers. But why take a chance, man? But again, as soon as that happens, Amanda takes Daniel and just starts running away from, what the hell's his name? The big dickhead dude. Xavier, that's it. We even got confirmation via film of his name, Xavier. He's chasing them, and then I love when, like, he just shows up and he's all, like, bloody on one side of his face from killing the other dude. And he's like, do not run. And then the first thing they do is turn around and run. That's absolutely hilarious. But no one searched these tapes to find out who this person is, that it's Amanda, or that she has a link to Jigsaw directly. That's, like, the biggest thing in this movie that gets to me. Like, they just don't do police work at all. Maybe that's why Jigsaw targets cops all the time, because they're stupid in whatever location all these stories takes place in. I forgot if they even mention a city, but whatever city it is, go there to commit crimes, because the police will not catch you. Say what you want about Donnie Wahlberg, it is sure as shit satisfying seeing him beat the shit out of and break the fingers off of Jigsaw. Not off, he doesn't break his fingers off, but he breaks his fingers. Such a satisfying scene when he kicks the shit out of Jigsaw. Alright, changed my mind. This is the stupidest shit in this movie. Like 100%. When the girl goes into the room and there's the box, the glass box, and it has an antidote right in the middle of it. I mean, I'll give her one hand just because of like the mind state she's in and the who knows if this nerve agent is fucking up her thinking. So I'll give her putting the first hand through. Alright, that will go with. Then she tries grabbing the antidote and just everything spills out of it. Then she puts her other hand through the other one. Why? Like, why? At that point, you know there's no more syringe and you know there's no more chemical in it. It's spilled all over the place. Why are you putting your other hand in there? And this is the easiest trap to solve, like by a long shot. It's just like a Chinese finger trap, almost. You put your hand through there, use your other hand to hold up the four blades and bring your hand back down. That's it. That's all you have to do. She couldn't think of it. I mean, obviously, like I keep saying, you can't know how you're going to react in these type of circumstances or this situation. But she could have thought a whole lot better about going about this. And she dies stupidly because she didn't. Oh, we do get a name for the black dude. It's Jonas. They were so happy to give that information to me while watching Jonas lay dead on the floor with the spiked bat in his head. So we do get a name for him, Jonas. Rest in peace. I do like this whole little scene though, when Xavier comes into the room that the girl has her hand stupidly in the box and just brushes her hair away to see the number and then just walks out of the room. Like, it really works to his character, 100%. What a douchebag this guy is. Alright, so this is what I mentioned very early on. And apologies, I know this is a shitty video. That's why I don't like not recording for a few days. Because then, like, the first video I do after that, always I'm just stumbling over words and my thoughts, but who cares, whatever. The fact that no one secured this building and knew that this was an elevator that John was on the whole time is so egregiously dumb. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, I really don't. Like, these people, yeah, it takes 40 minutes for a tech team to get there, and, like, the bomb squad never showed up. Like, unless they did and they didn't mention it. Yeah, this is the response time, and these are the police that we're dealing with here. But the fact that they didn't even realize and search this room, this little area that John's in, and no one even thought of the possibility that it's an elevator, and where the elevator drops them off at the bottom of the building, and they can leave. No one's there patrolling. No one's there, like, doing anything, like, at all. Like, no one's doing any type of police work at all here. Like, this place, this whole building they're in should be so locked down, it's not even funny. They have a serial killer here. I mean, with the details of whether he's a real serial killer or not, put aside. Whatever. Semantics. Yeah, that's the word I wanted, right? Who knows? They should have at least had guards everywhere, have every exit patrolled. None of that. These people just literally take an elevator ride down to the bottom, get in a car, and drive away. It's so stupid. Riggs even says right here, right after the elevator goes down, Riggs is like, secure the warehouse. What the fuck did you just say? Secure the warehouse now? You didn't, that wasn't like your order as soon as you got here. I don't know. I know I'm going off a lot on the police here, but Jesus Christ, man. Never noticed this, and I don't know if it's intended, but the address that the tech team tracks down the footage to, which then they do a whole Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill thing where they're trying to get into the house and it's not the right house, and they find out that it's all been recorded and everything. That this is all these events in the house already finished long ago, like a few hours before that. But the number for the address is 237 North whatever. So I wonder if that was an intentional nod to The Shining. I mean, basically anytime I see the number 237 in a movie, especially a horror movie, I'm going to always assume that it was just intended and it's a nice little homage to The Shining. But never noticed it here, probably is. We get a nice little other horror homage here, which I can only assume, but when Jigsaw is telling him directions to get to the house, he says it's the last house on the left. I mean, if that wasn't intended, I don't know what to say, but I mean, it's pretty obvious that was an homage there. I mean, we got a Shining reference and a Last House on the Left reference, like within 45 seconds of each other. Had to have been intended. So, like in all of these movies, well, not we don't get to the bathroom in all these movies, but they show up at the bathroom from the first movie, and we hear all dialogue from Adam and Dr. Gordon and everything, and then just like in all of these movies, we get just the amazing score that kicks in. And every time that you hear this score, you're like, "Oh shit, we're about to find out some things we did not know," but not really here, like in this situation in this movie. Basically, we know everything up to this point. The only thing we find out is that Amanda's going to be helping John until he dies, and she's taking over his work. Which, like again, we all could have assumed that. But just the whole setting here in the bathroom again, and then Xavier cutting off the back of his neck to get the number, his own number, which great fucking aim. This guy has amazing talent when it comes to hacking off specific pieces of your neck that you can't see, because he gets it perfect. He gets first try and he gets that number right off of him. So yeah, cops get to the house they think this is all taking place in. It's not. It's being played off a recording, basically. Which, why they didn't even consider that as an option, I don't know. Why any of this movie actually exists, I'm starting to wonder, because the rest of these movies going forward, everything like really ties together pretty well. This one, like, what was the whole reason of getting Detective Matthews into the bathroom at the end? Was it just for Riggs, like for his test that we see in Saw 4? Like to have him there and knowing that Riggs will do whatever he has to do, like to get to Matthews? Was that like the whole plan here? Because otherwise I have no idea what any of this was for. Like now that I'm really thinking about it, why go through all of this just for Matthews? And just to lock him into the same basement. And that is a great ending though. Well, like when he's screaming, "You fucking bitch," and he's he's dead. Like I don't know if I mentioned that in my video for the first one, but having a door of a rusty ass bathroom that you're chained to slam shut and the words "game over" being said to you, it's got to be absolutely chillingly terrifying. Like terrible in every way imaginable. You know that you're dying, you're going to starve to death. You just got to wait it out until it happens. Oh, that's got to be abysmal, just like waiting for the inevitable to happen. But I can't think of why Eric Matthews is so important to Jigsaw. And then we hear from Amanda that she'll be taking over for John and his life's work once he's passed from the cancer, and that she says specifically to him on the tape, to Detective Matthews, that this is her first test subject, that he is her first test subject. I'm guessing this whole thing was a test for Matthews. Yeah, all he had to do was sit there talking. But then what would have happened? Like if he would have sat there talking the whole time, because then we see when the timer clicks down to 0, the safe opens and Daniel's in the safe with an oxygen mask on. So he was safe this whole time, and he showed up in a safe place. That's what I mean, like the shit on the back of your mind and stuff. Like we know these cute little riddles from Jigsaw, like as we go forward, but how obvious it would be in the moment, I don't know. I still think the numbers thing would be found out a lot quicker than they do in this movie. But what happened if he just sat there and talked with him the whole time? Then the safe would have just opened, he would have found his son, but then what? Then Jigsaw's going to prison, right? Right? Like, he's getting arrested right then and there. And we wouldn't have any movies after this, and this is why this didn't happen this way. That's all I can think of. But yes, Saw 2, 2005. Fun, as usual with this series. Definitely have a lot more questions than I usually do when I rewatch this whole franchise, which back to back is not too often. But God, I love this series. Just knowing what's ahead is awesome. So wherever you guys are from, hope you're having a good morning or a good night, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.